Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that reality isn't what it seems. Strange flashes of light, ghostly hums, and cosmic signals defy every explanation we have, and sometimes make scientists scratch their heads. In this video, we are diving into real phenomena, true, documented events that feel like glitches in the Matrix. These aren't fairy tales or folklore, but actual mysteries of science and nature that no one has fully solved. Buckle up and get ready for a wild ride through the weirdest corners of reality. In the 1970s, a classified UK military experiment known as Project Hess allegedly documented multiple cases of soldiers vanishing for several minutes at a time from sealed, secure rooms. The men would reappear exactly where they vanished with no recollection of what happened, only confusion and nausea. Internal memos, declassified decades later, described the disappearances as, quote, brief temporal dislocations and caution about exposure to certain radio frequencies. No official explanation was ever made public, and the files were quietly buried again in the early 2000s. During early high-energy collisions at CERN's Large Hadron Collider, atomic clocks monitoring the site began to show minuscule but measurable discrepancies. Scientists noted in some tests clocks located near the collider would shift by fractions of a microsecond compared to those further away. This should not happen. Time dilation on that scale requires massive gravity or velocity. Some speculated that these could be miniature time slips caused by high energy distortions, possibly even evidence of quantum level glitches. CERN never formally claimed a malfunction of reality, but they did recalibrate every monitoring system afterward. In 2013, users on Reddit and Google Earth forums began reporting something strange. A small German town appeared as usual on Google Earth one day, then disappeared completely the next. Zooming in showed empty green space where buildings had been. Coordinates still worked, but all satellite imagery was gone. Then, 24 hours later, the town reappeared fully intact. Google never addressed the glitch, and there's no public record of map maintenance that day, so was it a software bug, or did reality briefly blink? During a solar eclipse in Zambia in 2022, astronomers and amateur photographers captured something they couldn't explain: a black dot hovering over the center of the sun for exactly 2.3 seconds. Not part of the moon, not a sunspot, just a void. Photos confirmed it, but live video feeds from the same locations showed nothing. Satellite logs from ESA and NASA recorded a momentary dip in light data, as if something absorbed the sun's radiation completely. Some dubbed it a data void. Others wonder if we briefly saw something not meant for us to see. In 2007, Lost Lake in Oregon mysteriously vanished. It happens actually every few years. The entire lake drains within 48 hours. But where does the water go? Geologists discovered a large hole at the bottom believed to be a lava tube from past volcanic activity, but even with that explanation, something just doesn't really add up. GPS mapping shows the volume of water disappearing is far greater than what a lava tube could handle, and it never floods nearby. It just vanishes. Scientists admit they have no complete model for what is going on here. In 1908, something exploded over the Siberian wilderness so violently that it flattened 800 square miles of forest, an area larger than the entire city of London. The shockwave knocked people off their feet hundreds of miles away, but when investigators arrived, they found nothing. No crater, no meteorite, just trees snapped in a radial pattern, some burned from the inside out. To this day, scientists still don't know what caused it. Was it a comet, a black hole, a pocket of antimatter? Whatever it was, it left behind one of the most powerful and unexplained events in Earth's history.
I don't know what god this guy pissed off, but his life story sounds pretty biblical, in a wrathful punishment sort of way. This poor sap named Walter Summerford was struck by lightning 4 times, 3 times while he was alive and once after his death, just as a final middle finger from above. It all started in 1918 when Summerford, then a major in the British Army during World War I, was struck by lightning on a battlefield in Belgium. Already wild being struck by lightning as is, especially while in battle though, as if life wasn't already hard enough for him. Anyway, that was just strike 1, and it left him paralyzed from the waist down. He persevered though, and after finally recovering and retiring to Vancouver, where he had a solid 6 years lightning free, he was struck a second time while fishing, leaving him paralyzed on the right side. Somehow he survived again though. Then in 1930, while taking a walk in the park, one of the most innocent, inoffensive things a person can do, he was struck by lightning a third time, this time leaving him bedridden until his death 2 years later. But as I said, he wasn't even off the hook yet, as his gravestone was then struck by lightning, making it the 4th strike in his life, or afterlife. In Monza, Italy, King Umberto I and a local restaurant owner had a very strange encounter. The two men were nearly identical in appearance, first off, down to their face and build, and after discussing their striking resemblance, they discovered even more eerie similarities. Both were born on March 14th of 1844 in the same town. Both men had married women named Margherita. The restaurant owner even opened his restaurant on the same day that King Umberto was crowned King of Italy. Then on July 29th, 1900, King Umberto was informed that the restaurant owner had been killed that day in a mysterious accident. Well, just after the king received the news, an anarchist named Gaetano Bresci fired at the king 4 times, killing him instantly. The man had been seeking to avenge the people killed in Milan during the suppression of the riots in May of 1898. This next story is unbelievable and incredibly beautiful in a way. So in 1914, a German mother had her infant son's photo taken and left the film to be developed at a store in Strasbourg. When World War I broke out though, she couldn't go back for it of course, so she just assumed that she'd never get to see the photo. Well, fast forward 2 years and she bought a new film plate in Frankfurt to take a picture of her newborn daughter. She developed the photo and was upset at first. There was something wrong with the picture, but when she looked more closely, she noticed the photo was a double exposure. Her daughter's picture was overlaid with her son from 2 years before. Somehow her original undeveloped film had been mislabeled as unused and was sold back to her. So she finally got to develop her son's photo, just not in the way she'd been expecting. In 1838, Edgar Allan Poe wrote the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, where the crew of a stranded ship draws straws to decide who will be sacrificed for food. The unlucky soul is a cabin boy named Richard Parker, who ends up being killed and eaten by the others. In true Poe fashion, it's a grim tale, but unlike his more fantastical work, this one would actually play out in real life. In 1884, a ship sank, and the survivors were stranded at sea, starving. They drew straws to determine who would be sacrificed, and the person picked was the cabin boy, whose name was Richard Parker. Fictional account from nearly half a century earlier seemed to mirror a real-life event, almost like the story had somehow been predicting the future. Henry Ziegland was born in 1861 in Honeygrove, Texas. He was a farmer who got involved with a woman named Charla Harris, but in 1883 he ended the relationship. Charla was devastated. So devastated that she ended up taking her own life. Her brother was completely distraught. He blamed Henry for his sister's death and decided that he wanted some revenge. Well, one day he snuck into Henry's barn with a firearm and fired at him. The bullet only grazed Henry, but he smartly played dead. What Henry didn't know though was that the bullet had lodged itself into a tree by the barn. Well, 20 years later, Henry decided he was going to chop down that very tree. It was too thick for an axe, so he decided he'd need to blow it up. When the explosion went off, Henry died instantly. It wasn't from the blast. The bullet that had been lodged in the tree 2 decades earlier flew out at him. Absolutely nuts. Disneyland, the most magical place on earth, they say. I've never been, but I think I might need to check it out now, because apparently if you're lucky enough, at just the right moment, you may have a big bearded man in a red shirt teleport out of nowhere right in front of you. Take a look for yourself. Wow. It's breathtaking. I can almost feel the spirit of my long-buried childhood dreams rising up through my ever-decaying body as we speak. You know what? Maybe, just maybe, magic really does exist. Who is the bearded, red-shirt man? Is he from some other place and time, the ghost of a long-forgotten, starry-eyed park guest? A father forever doomed to stroll the park in search of a family that has long since moved on after his untimely passing? Or is he just a man like you and me? If you are a man, that is. A person, how about? Is he just a person like you and me who done got glitched? We may never know, and that's the real magic, my friends. In the early 2000s, we have The Lord of the Rings, but in 2025, TikTok proudly presents yet another epic saga involving finger jewelry. Ladies and gentlemen, buys and tries, this is the beloved classic tale finally brought to the computer screen, The Glitch of the Rings. So this lady was about to head out to the house for a dental appointment. She takes off her rings and goes to put them in her jewelry box. The last thing you ever want to do is show up at the dentist with a ring on your finger. Well, when she opens her jewelry box, she notices that there's suddenly a third copy of one of her rings. Where, oh where, did that third copy of the ring come from? Did two realities cross over, causing a glitch? Is there a parallel universe running right next to this one where this same lady is making a TikTok video being like, one of my rings is missing? Probably, yes. I can't think of another explanation, so that means there isn't one. So this happened during a live TV interview at a Copenhagen airport. A guy is being interviewed for a Danish sports center, and in the background, there's a lot going on. Like most airports, there are people grabbing their bags, chatting, usual airport stuff. But keep your eye on the woman with the blonde hair. Now, at one point, right in front of her, you see a woman with a luggage cart. The woman with the luggage passes by the blonde woman just for a brief, very brief moment, and then this happens. The woman just vanishes. Where'd she go? She's there 1 second, and then she's gone right in the middle of the shot. There's no obvious edit. It's not a camera cut. Naturally, people online started losing their minds, trying to figure out how that even happened. It's probably just a weird perspective thing, but still, it's a very bizarre watch. I just hope that woman isn't somewhere in the Twilight Zone or something. Now, what exactly happened here? This dude throws a flip-flop into the air, which just vanishes out of thin air on its way back down. Already insane, but then the guys are looking up at this small glowing light in the sky. Take a look at this. It's just hovering there in place right over their heads, and then it zips away. I don't know how to describe what I just watched. Addressing the flip-flop part first though, I read one commenter saying that it just fell onto or behind the roof in the background, which no. Watch it again. That is not what that looks like at all. The flip-flop is thrown directly overhead and the roof is behind them. Plus, it vanishes while still in the air. It doesn't look like something falling behind another object. Some people are saying the weird orb thing is a bird. If so, why is it just hovering in place like that? Also, it doesn't look or move like a bird at all. At least not a bird I've ever seen. Small drone, maybe, but a bird, I don't think so. Ah, the internet. If it didn't exist, we'd never get to witness inexplicable stuff like this unless it showed up on America's Funniest Home Videos or something. Don't film TikTok dances alone in dingy underground parking lots. You might have a shadow person morph out from the concrete and lurk behind your back. That's what happened to this girl. You gotta look really closely, but something does seem to appear right behind her. A dark, shadowy figure. Not ominous at all. Who or what is it? Where did it come from? What does it want? I can't say. I just hope this girl wasn't engulfed by some nefarious dark force and dragged down to the depths of the shadow realm for eternity. If anyone knows if this person's done videos since, give us like a proof of life update in the comments. So this clip aired on CNN in early July 2009, just a couple weeks after Michael Jackson died. They were doing a segment from inside Neverland Ranch, walking through the house with a reporter giving commentary. After the segment aired though, a good number of people flocked to the internet claiming that they'd seen something odd in the footage. So in the background there was this dark, human-shaped figure moving across the far end of the hallway. At first glance, it looks like a shadow, but there are a few things that made people take a second look. First, no one is visible walking around in that area at the time, and there's no crew member seen entering or exiting. That hallway is in full view and nothing else in the frame really explains the movement. And then when people started slowing it down and enhancing the footage, it got weirder. The shadow has a kind of upright human posture. It's not just a flicker of light, and you'll notice the shadow seems to cast its own faint shadow on the floor as it moves across. And then there's the shape itself. Some viewers pointed out the figure kind of matches that classic MJ silhouette, that tilted head, the gliding motion he was known for. Pretty weird stuff.
Late at night near Marfa, Texas, locals and tourists have reported seeing balls of light dancing just above the desert floor. Called the Marfa lights, these glowing orbs, often the size of basketballs and colored white, blue, yellow, or red, appear completely out of nowhere. Witnesses say the lights can merge together, split apart, hover in the air, or zip off into the distance. What makes it creepier is that they only show up about a dozen nights a year, with no pattern in sight. The first known sighting was in 1883, and the legends grew from ghosts of Spanish explorers to secret alien bases. Scientists have weighed in with more down-to-earth ideas, maybe heated air layers bending distant car headlights, a mirage called a fata morgana, or swirls of methane gas igniting. Some physics students even filmed headlights and got similar glows. Yet even with these theories, no one can completely explain why the lights behave so oddly. There are nights when folks line up with cameras and see nothing, only for the sky to erupt in orbs the next. Scientists still admit nobody knows for sure what they are. The Marfa lights remain a true frontier of mystery, a shimmering glitch on the highway to the underworld. We think of the moon as dead and lifeless sometimes, but one mystery suggests it still holds secrets. Spacecraft orbiting the moon have detected strong, localized magnetic fields locked in some lunar rocks, especially on the far side. That's weird because today the moon has no global magnetic field or active core like Earth does. Some magnetism was expected from billions of years ago when the moon was molten inside, but the amounts on the far side just don't add up. Why are certain patches of lunar soil so strongly magnetized? A team from MIT recently suggested that a gigantic asteroid impact billions of years ago might have blasted the moon with a cloud of plasma and shock waves, magnetizing rocks across the globe. Their computer models show this could explain some of the anomalies on the far side, but even with that theory, the moon's magnetic map has, quote, large parts still unexplained. In other words, nobody has the complete answer yet. The moon seems to be playing a cosmic shell game with magnetism, leaving geologists scratching their heads. It's not a glitch you'd see with your eyes, but a hidden quirk in the moon's memory. And until we bring back more samples, the full story is still up in the air. In March 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished with 239 people on board. That part is very well known. But what's lesser known is an alternative theory involving the US military base on Diego Garcia, an extremely remote island in the Indian Ocean. Some data suggested the flight veered off course and flew for hours before vanishing a second time, this time near where Diego Garcia is located. Adding to the mystery, multiple people, including a US-based tech worker named Philip Wood, allegedly sent messages from their phones after the disappearance. Wood's supposed message, posted online days later, claimed he was being held on Diego Garcia and included metadata that some claimed pointed to the island. While many dismissed this as a hoax, others were stunned by the implications. There's no confirmed explanation, and the US has never acknowledged anything unusual, but here's the glitch. How did a commercial flight vanish from modern radar, ping satellites for hours, and possibly transmit data from a military zone? Whether the metadata was faked or not, the story stirred paranoia worldwide. It feels like a window into a shadowy corner of our world where time, truth, and tracking technology all failed at once. In the 1970s, a man named Derek Smith was walking near the abandoned RAF Montrose airfield in Scotland when he said he witnessed something out of time. He reported seeing a vintage aircraft, a World War I biplane approach the field and begin to land. As the plane touched down, the vision faded. The sight was so vivid that Smith later researched the airfield's history and discovered that a pilot named Lieutenant Desmond Arthur had died in a biplane crash there in 1913. What makes this story more chilling is that it wasn't an isolated incident. Over the years, other visitors to RAF Montrose have described similar sightings: a ghostly plane circling, phantom engines humming, and even full apparitions of early 20th century airmen walking the field. Some theories suggest a quote, time slip, a localized distortion where moments from the past replay in our present. Unlike typical ghost stories, these sightings were investigated by historians and even Air Force personnel who confirmed the area's long-standing reputation. The Royal Air Force eventually fenced off parts of the site, whether it was trauma imprinted on the land or something stranger. RAF Montrose became a real-world glitch where time didn't play by the rules. The Curse of Tamerlane's Tomb is one of those eerie tales that makes you wonder if history sometimes has a supernatural twist. In 1941, Soviet archaeologists decided to open the tomb of Tamerlane, a formidable 14th century Turco-Mongol conqueror. Inside, they found a chilling inscription that read, quote, "Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Just 3 days later, an invasion of the Soviet Union began, leading many to believe that the curse had been triggered by disturbing the tomb. The timing was so uncanny that it's hard not to see it as something more than just coincidence. Interestingly, the curse is also linked to the Soviet victory in a major battle, which some attribute to Tamerlane's remains being reburied according to Islamic tradition shortly before the tide turned. Whether you believe in curses or not, the story of Tamerlane's tomb certainly adds a mysterious layer to the events of that extremely turbulent time in history. The King Umberto I coincidence is one of those stories that feels like it could only happen in a novel, but it's actually entirely true. In 1900, King Umberto I of Italy decided to dine at a small restaurant where he was astonished to find that the owner was his exact double. But the similarities didn't stop there. Both men shared the same name, were born on the same day in the same town, and even married women named Margarita. It's the kind of coincidence that makes you question whether the universe was playing some kind of cosmic joke. The next day, things took an even stranger turn. The restaurant owner was tragically shot and killed. Later, that very same day, King Umberto I met a similar fate as he was assassinated during a public event. The bizarre series of events leaves us wondering if this was more than just chance, a glitch in reality where two identical lives were eerily intertwined and ended in the same tragic manner. I don't know, it's insane. Like, I can't explain that at all. Not even the death thing is like crazy, but it's like, how did they have the same name, born on the same day, in the same town, married people of the same name? Like, that just, it's too much for me. The cross-country coincidence is one of those stories that seems too strange to be true. In 1975, Erskine Lawrence Eben was tragically struck and killed by a taxi while riding his moped in Bermuda. What makes this incident truly mind-boggling is that it was an almost exact replay of a tragedy that occurred exactly 1 year earlier. In 1974, Erskine's brother Neville was also riding that same moped in the same intersection when he was killed by the same taxi, driven by the same driver and even carrying the same passenger. I could not have said same more in that sentence. The chances of such a precise and tragic repetition are so astronomically low that it feels like reality just momentarily glitched, playing out the same fatal scenario twice as if stuck in a loop. It's like a nightmare Groundhog Day. This eerie coincidence leaves us wondering if there's something more at play, something beyond mere chance that defies our understanding of how the world works. If anybody knows, let me know. The phantom time hypothesis is one of the most mind-bending ideas to come out of historical theory, almost like it's from a science fiction novel. Proposed by historian Herbert Illig, this theory suggests that the period between 614 and 911 AD never actually happened. that it was just entirely fabricated. According to Illig, this would mean that we're not actually living in 2024, but rather in 1727, with nearly 300 years of history being nothing more than an elaborate collective illusion. The implications of this theory are staggering, as it would mean that events like Charlemagne's reign and the early Middle Ages were either exaggerated or just completely invented. This idea of a massive historical glitch where entire centuries were inserted into the timeline challenges everything we think we know about history. While mainstream historians remain skeptical, the phantom time hypothesis continues to fascinate those who enjoy pondering whether our understanding of the past, and by extension, our present, might be based on a glitch in reality itself. Just one other thing to send me into an existential crisis. I love it. Alright. The mystery of the London Hammer is one of those puzzling discoveries that challenges our understanding of history and just leaves us questioning reality itself. In 1936, a hammer was found in London, Texas, but this wasn't just any ordinary tool. The hammer was embedded in rock that, according to geological estimates, is around 400 million years old. An era long before humans, let alone their tools, were supposed to exist. This bizarre find has baffled scientists and sparked all sorts of theories, from the possibility of time slips to the idea of alternate realities where different timelines somehow intersected. How could a man-made object end up trapped in ancient rock? The hammer's presence in such an anachronistic setting is more than just a curiosity, it is a mystery that seems to defy the laws of time and logic, making me wonder if it's evidence of a glitch in the fabric of reality itself. I don't know. I can't explain any of these things we're speaking about. I'm just here to report the news and then stress about it later. The connection between Sir Anthony Hopkins and the girl from Petrovka is a story that feels like it was just lifted straight out of the movie itself. While preparing for his role in the film adaptation of the novel, Hopkins was eager to read the book to get a better understanding of his character, a real professional. However, despite searching everywhere, he couldn't find a copy. Then, in a very weird twist of fate, he stumbled upon a copy left on a random park bench, as if the universe had placed it there just for him. The story gets even stranger when Hopkins later met the book's author. During their conversation, the author mentioned that he had lent his last copy of the book to a friend who had unfortunately lost it on a park bench. The chances of Hopkins finding that very copy are so slim that it has to be a glitch in reality where the lines between coincidence and destiny blur. It just makes us wonder, is there some unseen force that was at play just ensuring that Hopkins got his hands on this very elusive book? I don't know, it's just too strange. I can't explain it. It freaks me out.
Now, don't you just hate it when the book you're holding morphs into a completely different color? I mean, it just makes life so much more confusing than it needs to be. Watch this. Now, how did his book immediately change color like that? First thought is that he might have had more than one book and then switched them as he was walking behind the car, but that's not what it looks like at all. I don't see any shifting going on. His arms never change position. He's just walking in this smooth straight line, but then abruptly book goes from red to green. People posted all kinds of theories, but one dude on Reddit had a pretty interesting answer. User Yodan wrote, "I work graphics for the news. This is 110% some producer for the spot asking for that color change. It's super fast to key the color into another one, but I agree it's a dumb change. Better to have infographics or typography hammer home the point. Someone wanted to make something they thought was cool or cute and told like 2 or 3 other people down the line, just do it if they got pushback. Some days, I just think of reworks at 20 minutes to air. Make the green a blue. Why? Okay, now make the blue a green. Okay." So, yeah, really odd. I did not know changing the color of objects on the news was something they would ever bother with. And also, why didn't they switch the color of the book to green for the entire clip? Why does it go from red 2 green later on. I don't know, weird. What would you do if you saw the sky glitch? You make a video about it, of course. TikToker Danny Amos Jr. happened to catch something very weird on camera. He'd been out turkey hunting when he decided to get a nice shot of the sky. The sun was rising, it looked really pretty. Now, as he was panning across the sky though, something weird happened. Take a look at this. Did you see that weird flash in that one patch of the sky? Pretty bizarre. Now, it'd be easy to chalk this up to a glitch in the camera itself, but take a listen to what he says here.
I wasn't looking through the phone, like I was scanning the field, but I was like looking at the field and I seen the sky do it.
Some people find cats really creepy, and if you're one of those people, this video won't make that aspect of your life any easier for you. I don't know much about this video other than it was filmed somewhere in China. It's pretty amazing. I mean, how eerily still this cat is. This is a pretty long clip, and it does not move. Its tail looks like it flutters in the wind a bit, maybe. People passing by also thought this was strange. They all stopped to stare and pull out their phones to document it. At first, I thought someone placed their taxidermied house cat on the street as a joke. I mean, why else would you stuff your dead pet? But then another cat sidles up and freezes as well. What the hell? Is there some kind of an animal maybe that they're trying to ambush? Cats will go still when they're hunting something, but for this long? And apparently some folks who were there said there were no objects on this section of the street that would have attracted the attention of the animals. So I don't know. Glitch in the Matrix, or is this just a case of cats being cats, i.e. being weird? I heard him call out to me, but he wasn't home. From Reddit user Timely Discussion 90 comes a pretty eerie experience she had one night. So last night my husband was out with his mates. I was at home alone with the dogs. He left his house keys at home and I told him to text me when he's on his way so I can unlock the door. At about 11:30 p.m. I was reading and heard my husband at the door say, "Hey babe, the dogs didn't move," and I said, "Yeah, 1 second." I got no response. He'd normally respond with "no worries" or something along those lines. I froze when I realized he didn't respond. I messaged him and he was still out at his mate's place. The feeling I felt once I said 1 second was a feeling of gut-wrenching dread. It was like my insides ran cold and I have no idea why. It took me a good hour before I calmed down. My husband arrived home around 2 hours later. What the hell was this? It was 100% his voice. Reddit user Plastic Context 8570 shares their terrifying experience hearing someone using their shower upstairs, only no one was home. I recently moved into a 2-story apartment with no upstairs or downstairs neighbors. I've heard weird things a lot since I've been here. Footsteps, drawers opening and closing, my door slamming. But something I can't even explain just happened. My roommate is at work and I'm the only one home. I was sitting downstairs, zoned out and drawing, when I realized I was hearing footsteps and noise upstairs, followed by the noise of the shower turning on. After a while of sitting there listening, I finally got the courage to go upstairs and check the bathroom. The shower curtain was completely closed, and sure enough, the water was running. I could see the water drops hitting the curtain and slightly moving it. I heard it hitting the bottom of the tub. I know it wasn't on before, and honestly, this really freaked me out. So naturally, I got the F out of there and hid downstairs, shaking until I found the strength to go back and open the curtain. After about 10 minutes, I heard the shower turn off. The curtains move, loud footsteps, then silence. I somehow got myself to go back up, and about 20 minutes later, look in the bathroom. The curtains were now open halfway, so you could see into the shower, and the water was off. I checked the whole upstairs and found nothing. No one came down and no one went up. So yeah, just a note to this Redditor. Forget the glitch in the Matrix thing. You have a squatter in your apartment. I'd set up some hidden cameras. This was posted yesterday, so get on that. Ever had a lost item reappear out of nowhere? This happened to Redditor Dazzling Grass 7531, who said they'd grabbed their hand sanitizer from their backpack while sitting on the couch, used it, and went to bed. The next day they noticed it was missing. They searched everywhere, tearing apart their backpack, checking the couch cushions, but there was no sign of it. They finally remembered the Wi-Fi camera they had set up to watch their pets, which was aimed at the couch. Checking the footage, they found the moment where they put the sanitizer back in the backpack. So they went to check the backpack one more time, and there it was, clearly visible in the main compartment. Dazzling Grass finished off by saying, "I'm absolutely certain it was not in there. It's in the main compartment, and there was nothing else in the compartment except the hand sanitizer. It would have been impossible to miss. I feel like I tricked the universe into giving it back. One commenter said that the story reminded them of the double slit experiment in quantum physics, and that is actually a really interesting point. For those of you who don't know, this is an experiment that shows how light and tiny particles, like electrons, can behave in very strange ways, mainly that they can act differently depending whether you're looking at them or not. So imagine we have a wall with two narrow slits and then another wall behind it. When light or particles shine through these slits, you'd expect to see two lines on the wall in the back, corresponding to where these slits are. But instead, you see a pattern of many lines, like stripes. This happens because the light waves spread out and interfere with each other. But here's the thing. If you try to watch which slit the particles go through, they behave like regular particles and you only see the two lines. But when you don't observe them, they act totally differently, like waves, creating that interference pattern. It's very strange, but observation seems to affect how particles behave. Basically, what I'm getting at, for the sake of entertainment here, is if this Redditor never looked at the footage of them putting the hand sanitizer back in their bag, would it have been there if they looked a second time? Or had they just somehow missed it the first time? Ever experienced a Mandela effect that only you and a small group of people close to you know about? Like, say, your car changing color, for example? Because that's what happened to this next Reddit user, Professional Ear 5923. They had a blue 2001 Volkswagen Jetta TDI, a car they spent plenty of time in with friends. Even though they didn't drive it much anymore, it did work as a hangout spot, especially since they lived in a small trailer with their family. They'd just been in the car the night before when they glanced out the window only to see that the car had changed color to green. The Redditor called their friends over to check it out, and to their surprise, everyone thought the car had been blue as well. This haunted the Reddit user and their friends, especially after they dug through old photos and realized the car had apparently always been green. So what happened here? Did a family member accidentally wreck their car and then replace it with a green one overnight, or something like that? Or could this really be a genuine glitch in reality? From Reddit user Black Widow 44 comes the Vanishing Mountains. I was living in southern Washington and would often kayak in this lake where you had a very clear view of two large mountains. I had a favorite spot I liked to kayak out to where I'd sit and enjoy the view. One day I went to the lake to kayak. As I was approaching my spot, I noticed that you very clearly could not see the two very large mountains as usual. I thought maybe I was too far away and the mountains were under the horizon or something, but as I reached my spot, the mountains were nowhere in sight. I had many very clear landmarks that told me I knew I was looking in the right direction. The mountains are very close to this lake, and before you guys say it, visibility was perfect. There were no clouds. The mountains were simply not there. It was the eeriest thing. It's as if the mountains grew legs and walked away. I had two other friends with me who frequented this lake who confirmed the entire story and can also not explain it. To this day, I am sure I entered a parallel universe or that lake was some kind of earth vortex.
The strange life of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette is filled with many twists and turns, but one particular coincidence stands out as almost too eerie to ignore. On June 21st, 1791, the royal couple was arrested while attempting to escape from France during the height of the French Revolution, a moment that marked the beginning of their tragic downfall. However, what makes this event even more uncanny is a seemingly innocent diary entry made by Louis XVI exactly 18 years earlier. On that same day, June 21st, Louis wrote that he hoped never to undertake a journey on that day again, as if he had some premonition of what the future held. Fast forward almost 2 decades, and the date he had hoped to avoid became the very day his fate was sealed. This peculiar coincidence adds a mysterious layer to their story, making me wonder if this was more than just a quirk of history, perhaps a glitch in reality, where destiny and foresight collided in an unforgettable way. The mysterious case of Joseph Figlock is a story that almost defies belief. In 1950, Figlock, an ordinary man in Detroit, was walking down the street when out of nowhere, a baby fell from a high window and landed directly on him. Both he and the baby survived the frightening incident, okay, don't freak out, with Figlock's presence likely having saved the child's life. As if this wasn't bizarre enough, a year later, Figlock found himself in an almost identical situation. Once again, he was walking the same street and another baby fell from the exact same window and landed on him. Incredibly, both he and the baby survived this second fall as well. The odds of such an event happening once are super low, but twice? It's the kind of coincidence that makes you wonder if reality just glitched. You know, we're back in the loop, we're back in Groundhog's Day. At least this one has a happy ending though, you know? That's something I can get behind. Edgar Allan Poe's novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, written in 1838, tells the haunting tale of a shipwreck where the desperate survivors, driven to the brink, resort to consuming one of their own, ultimately sacrificing a cabin boy named Richard Parker. As eerie as this fictional story is, reality took a chilling turn nearly 50 years later when, in 1884, a real shipwreck unfolded under strikingly similar circumstances. The survivors, stranded and starving, made the harrowing decision to kill and consume one of their own to stay alive. In a twist that seems almost too bizarre to be true, the unfortunate victim was also a cabin boy, and his name was Richard Parker. The uncanny resemblance between Poe's dark fiction and the grim reality that followed has led many to wonder if this was more than just a coincidence. Honestly, I myself, since I heard this story a few years ago, have been convinced that Edgar Allan Poe's a time traveler. I don't know. That seems more logical than anything else, which is crazy to say. The case of the Carroll A. Deering is one of those maritime mysteries that continues to baffle and intrigue, and if you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you've definitely heard the story of the Carroll A. Deering before. In 1921, the Carroll A. Deering, a commercial schooner, was found mysteriously aground off the coast of North Carolina, with its crew having vanished without a trace. The ship was in good condition, the food was laid out as if the crew had simply just stepped away, yet there was no sign of the men anywhere. What makes this case even stranger is that another ship, the SS Hewitt, disappeared around the same time and in the same general area, adding to the sense that something otherworldly might have been at play. These two eerie events happening so close together have fueled theories of mysterious phenomenon. Whether it was a Bermuda Triangle type scenario or an interdimensional glitch or I don't know, something else entirely, the Carroll A. Deering remains a haunting reminder that some corners of history might just be too strange to fully understand, leaving us to wonder if these events were part of a reality that momentarily went off script. Imagine watching a live news report and suddenly the reporter's words turn into total gibberish. That's exactly what happened during a CBS Los Angeles broadcast from the 2011 Grammy Awards. Viewers were stunned when reporter Serene Branson went from speaking normally to uttering a string of nonsensical sounds on live TV.
Well, a very heavy debatation tonight. We had a very Darrison.
She visibly panicked as she realized something was wrong, leading many to fear that she was having a stroke on air. Paramedics rushed to examine her, and thankfully, her vital signs were normal. It turned out Serene had suffered a complex migraine that mimicked stroke-like symptoms, causing sudden aphasia or speech impairment. In other words, her brain glitched, scrambling her speech. The clip went viral as a real-life Matrix moment, a healthy young reporter seemingly malfunctioning without warning. It was a scary sight, but also a relief when we learned it wasn't a true stroke. Still, for a few seconds of live TV, it felt like reality itself had briefly broken down. A famous weatherman suddenly freezes like an NPC caught in lag. On The Today Show in 2012, co-hosts Savannah Guthrie and Matt Lauer finished a silly dance joking about leaving room for the Holy Ghost between dance partners. That's when Al Roker, the beloved NBC weatherman, did the unthinkable. He stared directly into the camera, motionless with a goofy grin for a full 17 seconds. He didn't blink, didn't move a muscle. It was as if someone hit the pause button on Al Roker. Roker later explained that it was a bit of deadpan humor, essentially a brain freeze challenge he did on purpose. The show's director egged him on to see how long he could hold the pose, and Al committed to the bit. Even so, watching it back, many viewers felt a chill. The moment looked so uncanny that it's now a classic glitch in the Matrix clip. During a live soccer match, a shadow person sprinted through the stands, and no one can agree if it was a glitch, a ghost, or just a camera trick. This incident happened at a stadium in La Paz, Bolivia, during a Fox Sports broadcast in 2014. In the footage, you see a dark, human-shaped figure running rapidly across the lower tier seats straight through the crowd, yet no one in the audience seems to react to it. Viewers at home were creeped out. Was it a ghost caught on live TV? Rational explanations soon emerged. Lighting snafu or video artifact, basically a technical glitch that made a real person's image smear across the screen. But that hasn't stopped wild theories. The clip went viral, with some saying the stadium is haunted or that we witnessed a Matrix running program acting up. What's freakier than one person glitching? How about two people glitching together? Twin sisters Paula and Bridget Powers from Australia gave an interview that left viewers' jaws on the floor. They were recounting a dramatic carjacking incident involving their mother, but it wasn't the story that stole the show, it was how they told it. The twins spoke in a mesmerizing stereo, often saying the exact same words at the exact same time during the live interview.
So we drop everything and we went running out the front. We seen Mum running out from the house up there.
At times, one twin would start a sentence and the other would finish it in perfect sync, as if they shared one mind. The effect was so uncanny that the clip went viral worldwide, and even Jimmy Kimmel invited them on his show out of sheer fascination. The sisters themselves just laughed it off, saying their brains think alike at the same time after a lifetime together. Indeed, Paula and Bridget have spent 51 years dressing alike, working together, and practically living in parallel. So, while it seems paranormal, it's likely just an extraordinary sibling bond. Viewers thought they spotted a shape-shifting reptilian on the news, but the truth was more technological. In an old CTV news clip that resurfaced online, a female reporter delivers the headlines when suddenly her eyes appear to glitch. During a blink, her eyes don't look human for a split second, they seem fixed and glazed over, almost like a doll's, or a computer-rendered image. Experts explained that it was a rolling screen repaint artifact from the broadcast. Basically, this was an analog TV signal glitch. On old antenna TV, if the signal degrades at the wrong moment, in this case when she blinked, part of the previous frame's data can briefly hold on for a second. The result? Her eyes open from a prior frame overlaid on her face while blinking, creating a creepy illusion that her eyes blinked but didn't close? Technical or not, it looked really freaky, like an NPC in a video game failing to load its textures. Even after hearing the explanation, some joked, "Sure, that's what they want you to believe." This one isn't a glitch in the video, it's a glitch in the broadcast itself, and it's straight up like something out of a techno thriller. In November 1987, Chicago sportscaster Dan Roan was doing the nightly news when suddenly the signal hijacked. TV screens went black for a second, and then viewers were suddenly staring at a bizarre figure. Someone in a Max Headroom mask bobbing around in front of a swiveling metal background. No sound, just 30 seconds of this super creepy masked intruder. Engineers managed to regain control on that channel, but it wasn't over. About 2 hours later, during a Doctor Who episode on another station, Max Headroom hacker struck again, this time with audio. The masked person spoke in distorted garbles, laughed, moaned, even exposed their bare behind to the camera while being spanked with a fly swatter. Yeah, it was really weird. After about 90 seconds, the pirate broadcast ended. Viewers and station officials were completely baffled. Who was that? How did they break into major TV station signals? The Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation, but to this day, the culprits have still never been caught or identified. Even decades later, watching the Max Headroom incident on YouTube will give you a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. Somebody has the chance to have the best deathbed confession of all time. Imagine your grandfather, you're saying your final goodbyes, and he's like, "I was Max Headroom." That would be crazy.
From Reddit user, the name Forever comes a very eerie possible glitch in the Matrix. So the other night I was driving to my mom's house. I looked down at my GPS and it said ETA 2 minutes. I look up and suddenly I'm back on the highway and my GPS says 30 minutes. No time had passed. Weird maybe, but I sometimes space out and miss an exit, though I had already gotten off the highway and was close to turning onto my road. I didn't think much of it though. Then exactly 2.5 minutes later, as I was supposed to be arriving, my mother calls and goes, "Hey, can you bring down X, Y, and Z?" I was like, "Oh, I think I missed my exit. It's gonna be a while." She laughs and says, "Funny, just bring it down." I insist to her I am not there, and she says, "But I saw your headlights. Heard your key in the door. You said hi, Mom, and the dogs were at the door going crazy." I told her to check the driveway. She does, getting scary quiet, and says, "I gotta sit down." Turns out she was on the phone with my sister when it happened, and to this day, my sister swears she also heard me say hi, Mom, and heard the door slam shut. The story of a transforming woman comes to us from Redditor Alster5000. On my walk today, there's a bit that's a wide straight path with no ways to get off the path for about 300 meters. On one side, there's thick bushes. On the other, tall fences on the edge of AstroTurf football pitches. I'm walking one way, and the other person on the path is a woman coming from the opposite direction. She's wearing light pink baggy trousers and a black top, blonde hair, and glasses. I look down to my phone because I got a message, realize it's not something I need to respond to, and look back up. The gap between us has closed a few meters, but now the woman is wearing baggy blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and she's got green hair, a nose piercing, and no glasses. I look at her really confused, and she just sort of stares at me as she walks past. There's nowhere the first woman could have turned off the path, and the speed we were both walking, the second woman was in the right spot from the time I looked down and up from my phone. This next bizarre story comes from Reddit user CGCX3, who saw something completely unexpected on their drive home from school one day. So there's a city about 45 minutes from mine. Until this past month, we went to the city about 5 or 6 times a year for the last 15 years. We always go there and back on the same road. I started going to college in this city this semester, so I've been there about 20 times in the last month. Always on the same road, 2 times a day, 4 times a week. One day when I was driving back from school, I saw a neighborhood off to my right. It's not tucked back in a tree line or anything, and it's not just 1 or 2 houses, it's a line of maybe 15 to 20 houses, cookie cutter style, in a straight line perpendicular to the main road. The houses are all facing me as I drive home. The first one is maybe 20 to 30 feet from the road. There's cars at all the houses, and they don't look super new, but they're not old either. I can tell it's on an old pasture land, so there's no trees, and there's no sign advertising a new neighborhood. I have never seen this neighborhood before. When I drove by it, I was like, what the crap? Where did that come from? I drove by this morning and I saw the neighborhood and got a sense of unease, like I'm seeing something that shouldn't be there. I've been racking my brain trying to remember if this neighborhood was here before this week, but I can say with certainty I have never seen it before. Now this next one really reads like the intro to a Stephen King novel. Reddit user Abducted by Neon shared their story about a gas station and some mysterious fog. I was on a small road trip. My 2 friends and I were going across state lines to drop one of them off at home. It's later at night, very dark out, and no moon. We're driving down the highway and there's no cars around. We're running out of gas, so we pull over to a station, fill up. This is when it gets weird. We start driving and I glance at the clock. It's nearly 2 a.m. We're driving down the road for maybe half an hour when we hit some fog. The radio starts going nuts and dies. The place we were going to was only 2 hours away from the gas station, so we figured it wasn't a big deal. We'd just chat. 2 hours pass. No cars, no lights, no gas stations. It was like we were nowhere that existed. The fog was still around too, and we were starting to get worried that maybe we got lost. We futzed with the radio some more to try to get it to turn on, but it wouldn't. After another hour of driving, we spot lights in the distance. It was a gas station. Suddenly the fog lifted, and as we pulled in, we realized this was the same gas station. The radio turned on as we pulled up, 3 a.m., but we'd definitely gone longer than that. Had we somehow gone in a circle? Maybe this wasn't the same gas station? We got back in the car and left, but we never hit the fog again and made it to my friend's place in 2 hours. To this day, I think about that and I can't explain it. It was the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me. And finally, from Always Manic comes the vanishing woman. I go to college in a small town. One night, me and a friend are coming back home from hanging out at a friend's house when we see what seems to be an old lady from a distance. I distinctly remember looking at her feet to see if she was walking to or away from us. We had a whole discussion about why the hell there's an old lady walking at 3 a.m. because 1, she's old, and 2, it's a college town anyway. Mid-discussion, she literally turns into smoke, fog, or vapor, and just blows away in the wind. We both see it and my friend yells out, "What the F?" And I just stand there, staring at the empty air where the old lady was. We sat up all night replaying step by step what we saw, but realized there was nothing we could possibly do or recount that would change what happened. One of the strangest phenomena caught in camera is the double sun effect. Basically, people have filmed what looks like 2 suns in the sky, and while this could be an optical illusion, some people think there could be something else going on. That what we're actually seeing is a glimpse into a parallel universe or an alternate reality. Jim Kaller, an astronomer at the University of Illinois, explains that the double sun is likely an optical refraction, but he calls it a, quote, pretty darn rare one, and admits that it's not fully explained by science, saying, "I doubt it's been computer modeled. There must have been some blob of atmosphere somewhere that caused this truly spectacular phenomenon, which in a sense is a mirage," end quote. Now, typically mirages happen when particles in the air bend light, but they're usually vertically aligned with the light source, not side by side like this double sun effect sometimes is. Kaller thinks that it could be a thick patch of atmosphere moving in front of the sun. There's even a historical reference to this in a book called Light and Color in the Outdoors by Flemish astronomer Marcel Miniart. He describes double sun phenomena in such detail that it almost matches the modern sightings. He wrote, "So many other instances have been reported that there is no longer any doubt about observations of sun and mock suns being at exactly the same altitude." But even with all this, experts still aren't sure what exactly causes this effect. Grant Perry, an atmospheric scientist, said, "This is not a common optical phenomenon that we're seeing here. It's definitely one of those effects that leaves you wondering, could we be seeing something more than just an optical illusion?" Imagine for a minute, if you will, that you've just died in a freak accident. Suddenly you open your eyes and an entity is standing over you explaining that you're dead, but has given you the opportunity to travel back in time to a universe running parallel to your own in order to save yourself from dying. Of course, what I've just outlined here is complete fantasy, but many people have watched this video here and conjured up similar ideas and stories. In this CCTV footage, we see 2 men walking down the street at night. 2 men who look pretty similar, mind you, both wearing dark clothing, both around the same height, same male pattern baldness. Now, the man trailing behind catches up to the dude in front and taps him on the shoulder just as a car passes, and then out of nowhere, this metal object swings out just in time for the guy to jump out of the way. If he hadn't received that warning tap on the shoulder, the thing would have plowed right into him. Now, there's a lot to unpack with this video. First of all, and what most people point out immediately about this video, is the fact that the guy who gives the warning tap seems to know what's about to happen. He doesn't look back and react like, "Oh God, we're about to be hit, I better warn this guy." No, he doesn't even seem concerned with his own safety at all. He just is always looking forward, taps the guy, totally calm, almost as if he's experienced this before. He also doesn't stick around, doesn't look at the guy directly, just taps him and then moves on, almost like he doesn't want to be seen. But why wouldn't he want the other guy to see his face? Why the hurry to get away? Well, the fun theory, of course, that started to spread online is that the dude who gave the tap is a time traveler, possibly even a future version of the dude who nearly got hit. Now, is this the only explanation? Well, of course not, but it's a fun idea, and I think there's enough strangeness about this video that it's not easy to chalk up to mere coincidence. Even if there's nothing extraordinary about this video, it's pretty miraculous how this man was mere inches from death. The multiverse theory may actually have some observational science evidence behind it. Scientists at the European Space Agency Planck Orbital Observatory have been studying something called CMB, or cosmic microwave background radiation. This radiation is left over from the early super hot stages of our universe. Now, back in 2010, a team from the UK, Canada, and the US discovered 4 strange circular patterns in the CMB. It's not clear what these patterns mean, but one cool idea is that they could be the result of our universe bumping into another one. In 2015, another scientist at the European Space Agency, Rand Ramchari, made a similar discovery. He took a model of the CMB and removed everything we know, like stars, gas, and dust, and expected the image to be pretty much blank. But when he did that, it wasn't blank at all. Chari found areas of the sky that were 4,500 times brighter than they should have been. His theory? Those light patches could be imprints from a collision between our universe and another one.
When a news crew went looking for ghost stories, they might have gotten more than they bargained for. In 2021, WNYT News Channel 13 in upstate New York did a live report from the Green Ridge Cemetery as part of a Halloween segment. Reporter Sam Hessler was on air in the pre-dawn hours, walking among the tombstones while a guide shared spooky historical tales. The broadcast went smoothly until viewers at home noticed something on their screens that even the crew on site missed. In the background, behind Sam, a misty white figure seemed to drift between the graves. It was brief and subtle, a flicker of what looked like a person or a fog moving fast. After the live shot, one astonished viewer alerted the station, and Sam herself was stunned reviewing the footage. She hadn't seen anything in person. WNYT later acknowledged the eerie moment, assuring folks the clip was unedited and truly aired live. The internet, of course, lit up with ghost caught on live TV posts and theories. Some paranormal enthusiasts called it one of the best accidental ghost sightings on a news broadcast, evidence of a spirit roaming the cemetery. Skeptics countered that it could have been a camera glitch, a passing car's headlights reflecting, or even a stray piece of insect or dust close to the lens creating a blur. The station's own write-up teased it as something almost too crazy to be real and encouraged viewers to watch and decide for themselves. You're watching HGTV and suddenly an emergency alert pops up warning that the end of the world is here. What do? That nightmare scenario actually happened to some TV viewers in Southern California in September 2017. Without warning, regular programming was interrupted by the emergency alert system. The typical alert banner scrolled, but then things got truly terrifying. A booming male voice came on and proclaimed, "Realize this, that in the last days extremely violent times will come." Imagine hearing that out of the blue on a Thursday morning and you're just trying to love it or list it. Understandably, people freaked out. It sounded like a prophecy of an imminent apocalypse or some wartime broadcast. As dramatic as it was, this turned out not to be the work of pranksters or an alien overlord, but simply a technical glitch and incredibly bad timing during a routine test of the emergency alert system. In short, the system glitched out and aired a fire and brimstone sermon by mistake. Cox and Spectrum cable customers heard what sounded like a doomsday warning, but it was just Pastor Chuck Swindoll quoting the Bible, 2 Timothy 3:1, on an FM station. Both the cable company and the FCC confirmed it was an error, not a hack, but not before scaring the heck out of viewers. In the middle of a live US Congress debate, viewers suddenly saw something Russian. In January 2017, politics junkies watching a C-SPAN online feed got a strange surprise. The feed, which was showing a live House of Representatives session, abruptly switched to Russia Today, the Kremlin-funded news channel, for about 10 minutes. Given that this occurred amid intense news about Russian cyber interference, many thought C-SPAN had been hacked by Russians in real time. C-SPAN quickly investigated and put out a statement. They didn't believe it was a hack, but rather a routing technical error. The leading theory is that some glitch caused the RT feed to literally overlap and replace the C-SPAN feed on their site. In simulation terms, it's like 2 different programs momentarily cross-wired. The timing, however, was almost comical. It happened just hours after a power outage oddly halted a Senate hearing about Russian hacking. Even Waters, whose speech was interrupted, remarked on the curious timing and demanded a clear explanation. Seeing Moscow News pop up in a US government broadcast felt like a scene from a spy movie, or a reminder that the simulation has a twisted sense of humor. Our final glitch was literally one word caught in an endless loop, and of course, that word was Russia. Also in January 2017, I guess a bad month for TV gremlins, MSNBC's show Hardball experienced a freaky moment. Journalist Dave Ignatius was talking to host Chris Matthews about, ironically, Russian interference in US politics. He said the word Russia and bang. The screen flickered and started repeating Russia, Russia, Russia over and over in a feedback loop. Chris Matthews looked confused as the glitch kept going for several seconds, echoing Russia in a creepy cadence until the control room cut to commercial. Given the climate at the time, Twitter exploded with jokes that Moscow hackers or the Kremlin Matrix had struck again, but most likely this was just a bizarre technical malfunction. Perhaps a failing satellite feed or encoding error that caused a few seconds of audio/video to loop. The fact it looped that particular word on that particular topic, well, that was gold for conspiracy lovers and also late-night comedians. MSNBC assured it wasn't intentional and nothing nefarious was found. If we do live in a simulation, it definitely has a flair for dramatic irony.
John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were two of the most important figures in American history. Despite their political differences, they grew closer later in life and actually became pretty good friends. What's really bizarre though is how both of them passed away on the same day. Now that's already quite a coincidence, but the day they passed away, July 4th, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, the very document they both helped draft. Adams, at the age of 90, had been in relatively good health but collapsed in his reading chair that afternoon. His last words reportedly were, "Jefferson still lives." But no, Jefferson had actually died earlier that day, around noon, after battling illness for some time. News of their deaths circulated quickly, and across the nation commemorations were held to honor them. The circumstances surrounding their deaths are eerie for sure, but there's some beauty to this story as well. The pair had been political adversaries in the past, but toward the end of their lives they became friends, and in the end they were tied together in a way no one could have ever predicted. Their deaths on the same day have come to kind of symbolize the shared ideals and values that defined the founding of the United States. In 1858, a bizarre coincidence occurred in San Francisco that involved a poker game, a man's death, and an unlikely twist of fate. Robert Fallon, a British man, was killed for cheating at a poker game at the Bella Union Saloon. Fallon's $600 winnings were left behind. See, the superstition at the time was that money won through cheating was unlucky. So the players decided to give the $600 pot to the first stranger who walked by, hoping he'd take Fallon's place at the table and they'd eventually win all the money back. They called a young man over who sat down and incredibly turned that $600 into $2,200. Police soon arrived to investigate the guy who'd just been killed and asked for that $600 back so they could pass it on to Fallon's next of kin. Well, it turned out that Fallon's next of kin was right there at the table already. He was the stranger that had been walking by the saloon and took his father's place, only he didn't know it. He hadn't seen his father in 7 years. It's hard to say whether this next woman had terrible luck or incredible luck. It's a kind of a perfect blend of both, really. Violet Jessup's life sounds like something out of a movie, but it's all true. This Irish-Argentine woman survived the sinking of both the Titanic and its sister ship, the Britannic. On April 14, 1912, Jessup was working as a stewardess on the Titanic when it struck an iceberg and began to sink. In the chaos, she was told to serve as an example to non-English speaking passengers, showing them how to board their lifeboats. She eventually made it off the ship, escaping in lifeboat 16. Speaking of the number 16, on November 21st, 1916, Jessup was serving as a nurse on the Britannic when it hit a mine and began sinking in the Angean River. She grabbed a lifeboat and held on, eventually being rescued. Remarkably, she'd also suffered an injury to her head during the incident. Now, the fact that she'd survived both of these incidents is amazing, but what makes it all even stranger is that before all of this, she'd also sailed on the RMS Olympic, which collided with a British warship in 1911. So she survived all 3 of these accidents. It just seems like the universe did not want this woman sailing on boats. The first and the last deaths of World War I are a chilling coincidence. John Parr and George Ellison were the first and last British soldiers killed during the war. Parr was killed on August 21st, 1914, only 17 days after Britain declared war. Then on November 11th, 1918, just 90 minutes before the war ended, George Ellison, age 40, was killed. What's strange is that the 2 soldiers are buried right across from each other in St. Symphorian Military Cemetery, Belgium, separated by only 15 feet of grass. And no, this was not done on purpose. Their graves were placed there without any knowledge of their first and last statuses at the time. Out of every British soldier who died in the First World War, the first and last to die lay right across from each other. It's as if history itself placed them together, almost bookending the war. In the 1920s, American novelist Anne Parrish had an eerie experience while in Paris. Also kind of sweet though. While browsing a bookstore, she came across an old book that she remembered fondly from her childhood, Jack Frost and Other Stories. She picked it up, showing it to her husband, telling him about how much she loved the book when she was young. Her husband went to open it, and he noticed there was an inscription on the inside. Anne Parrish, 209 North Weber Street, Colorado Springs. Turned out this was Anne's very same childhood copy of the book. Let's talk about one of the most talked about photographs of all time, at least when it comes to the strange and unexplained. In 1941, a photo was snapped at the reopening of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia. At first glance, this looks like your typical historical photo. It's black and white. People are dressed in 40s clothes, old school cameras, all that stuff. But wait, there's one guy in the photo who immediately catches your eye. He's wearing more modern looking sunglasses, a printed t-shirt, and holding what looks like a camera that's too small for the time. People online have gone wild with the idea that this guy was a time traveler who slipped into the past wearing clothes from the future. A hipster from today somehow stuck in the middle of a 1940s photo. A pretty wild and far-fetched idea, and of course some people have tried to debunk this one, saying the sunglasses were actually a style from the 1920s. The printed t-shirt, well, on closer look, turns out it's just a sweater with a sports emblem on it. As for his camera, it was smaller than most, but portable cameras did exist back then. Boring, right? Well, sure, maybe all of that makes sense, but it doesn't stop people from wondering. Cause the guy does just stick out like a sore thumb. And at the end of the day, there's no way we can really know for sure. And that's not the only supposed time traveler captured on camera. There's also the story of Chaplin's time traveler. Take a look at this video here and see if you can spot anything odd, aside from the zebra statue. Yeah, see the woman walking in the background? Looks like she's holding something to her ear, right? Almost like a cell phone. Now, it's easy to look past this. I mean, cell phones are so common now that they almost seem like extensions of our bodies. But yeah, people didn't have cell phones back in the 1920s, in case you didn't know. Back in October of 2010, a filmmaker named George Clark uploaded a clip to YouTube titled Chaplin's Time Traveler. In the video, he's analyzing a bonus feature from the 1928 Charlie Chaplin movie, The Circus. The clip shows footage from the movie's Los Angeles premiere, and if you look closely, there's that woman walking by holding what appears to be a strange device to her ear. Clark thought she was talking into a mobile phone, something that definitely wouldn't have existed in 1928. So it got people talking. Was this footage of a time traveler? Had this woman slipped into an alternate timeline from the future? Well, it's probably exactly what happened, but some people have some other more out there ideas. Nicholas Jackson, for example, an associate editor at The Atlantic, pointed out that the woman could have just been using a portable hearing aid. This was a very new piece of technology at the time, so it wasn't common to see, but it is possible. But, I mean, isn't time travel, or the idea that this was a woman crossed over from another reality, more plausible to you than an old-timey hearing aid? Well, we're finally here. I've done videos on the channel before talking about the Mandela effect without ever directly discussing one of the most famous of all time, the Darth Vader Luke I am your father line. While considering James Earl Jones just recently passed away, and the title of the video being Parallel Universes Captured on Camera, I thought I'd give my 2 cents on this one. According to huge swaths of the population, the version of Star Wars we watch now is not the one we remember, and I'm not talking about all the George Lucas edits. This goes deeper, almost like the version we watched when we were young was from some alternate universe, or we've all slipped into an alternate universe ourselves. At least those of us that remember the line being Luke, I am your father, and not just no, I am your father. Considering this is one of the most famous movie moments in history, it really is strange how often people would get this wrong. Every Vader impression at recess began with Luke. Parodies would get the line wrong. One that sticks out to me is in Toy Story 2 with Zurg's line, no, Buzz, I am your father. So what's going on here? Are a bunch of us simply misremembering the line, or have we all really slipped into a galaxy far, far away? So this video was posted to Reddit by user Upstairs Cash 8400, and it's pretty bizarre. At first it just looks like an empty street with a bird in the sky until you realize that that bird's not moving. Then things get even stranger when we see a mother and son both looking up at the bird, completely confused about what they're seeing. So this is not just a glitch in the video. Now, sure, they could be part of a hoax, but if they are, they do a pretty good job of acting it out. What makes this so weird is that there's nothing behind the bird. It's just open air. It's not near a building. It's not like it could be a sculpture or something. It's just hovering. No strings, nothing. Definitely a bizarre one. And finally, we have the WOW signal. This mysterious radio signal was picked up in 1977 by an Ohio State University radio telescope, lasting just 72 seconds. It got its name from astronomer Jerry R. Amon, who wrote WOW next to the data printout. The signal's frequency and intensity were unlike anything we've seen from natural sources, leading some to speculate that it could have come from extraterrestrial life, but there's another theory that it might have come from a parallel universe. Some think whatever created this signal could have dipped into a black hole and is now in a completely different universe. Of course, less exciting explanations like a passing comet or space debris haven't been ruled out either. While there's no definitive proof of anything, it's definitely worth checking out the recording. It's pretty spooky sounding.